We'll go ahead and get started. Today we have with us Aaron Weissman. He's a multi-unit franchisee in Montana. He's our only franchisee in Montana, and he has 2 locations open currently, one in Great Falls and one in Billings. He brought the brand to the state, Montana, about 8 years ago in 2016, and he left a background in sales and military contracting to build a business for his own and get into franchising. He's also super involved in his community, and we wanted to sit down and talk to him today about his success and how he's built such a great community and team in his shops that allows him to be so successful. So with getting started, can you tell me a little bit more about what you were doing before joining TMAD, kind of what brought you here, and more about just your journey with franchising and learning about TMAD and why it was the best fit for you?
Well, I was in the industrial distribution business in throughout the early 2000s and the 2010s, and I came to the point where I realized that it wasn't a good idea to compete against Jeff Bezos. So I decided to get into a business that he wasn't going to get into, and I kind of thought hot food was the way it was, and I started looking at a bunch of different franchising options, and I was looking for something that was different. I was looking for something that had a relatively higher price point. I mean, you're only as rich as your customers, which is a good rule of thumb. So something that's a little bit higher end, something that I thought was on brand and on trend. I tried the food at Teriyaki Madness, and I was absolutely blown away. It has a couple advantages over some other things. First, it has a perception of being healthy food. Whether that's true or not depends a lot about what the customers choose to order. But you certainly can make your order quite healthy at our restaurant, and it happens to be delicious food that happens to be healthy, unlike a brand that might be healthy food that might be delicious but probably isn't. We have really delicious food at Teriyaki Madness that is that I think really does a good job of meeting and exceeding customer expectations. Really high quality food, really high portions, and I think that it really represents a really strong brand and has really positive customer interactions. How's that?
That's great. Yeah, definitely. And I think definitely helps that the food industry is trending towards healthier foods and kind of more international cuisines, which definitely gives us an advantage. Can you tell us some more about what you do in your hometown of Great Falls and the community and just other things? First of all, with community outreach, but also just to get people in the door and knowing about your restaurant.
Well, I'm really active in both Billings and Great Falls. I'm a member of the Great Falls Rotary Club. I'm on several committees for the city commission and the school board and other things like that. I'm a scoutmaster in Great Falls, and I've been a scoutmaster with Scouting America for almost 20 years now. I'll be, before this meeting, I did attend a Great Falls Rotary Club meeting where we had several volunteer projects that we were putting together. And then tonight I'm going to be leading my scout troop on a hike. I mean, it's what you do. You be active in your community, and that's what's important.
And how do you think you being active in your community helps build up your customer base and your sales?
Well, I think that people are really challenged not to be confronted by me face to face, asking them to come to my restaurant at least once a week, anywhere in Billings or Great Falls.
I love that.
I mean, I do my very best to. I do my very best to solicit business and ask. People aren't going to do business unless you ask them for business, and I make a point to ask for the business. In addition to being an active member community, which I would be doing anyway, but nobody does business with you unless you ask them for it, and I make a point to be active. I mean, I just had my Billings general manager join the Rotary Club in Billings. Whenever I'm in Billings, I go to a Rotary Club meeting there. We're active in the Great Falls Chamber of Commerce, the Billings Chamber of Commerce, Great Falls Tourism, Billings Tourism. We make a point to put our name out there and be active.
I love that. So going kind of back to the beginning of when you first became a TMAD franchisee, You were the first franchisee that was going to be in the state of Montana. Did you face any struggles bringing Teriyaki Madness to a new state and a new market? And you can kind of talk about that on both sides, when you first brought it to the state, as well as now that you've got the Billings location, and how that was.
Well, we're a new brand. I mean, even still, we're a baby brand. We have the opportunity in most of the communities that we go to. People have never heard of Teriyaki Madness. Maybe that's a little bit less true now, but most people still haven't. We have the opportunity to introduce ourselves to our customers. One of the reasons I chose to put Teriyaki Madness in Great Falls is, quite frankly, we're an Air Force town, and and a lot of military service members have served in Japan, have served in Hawaii, and might have some familiarity with teriyaki food. And so I kind of thought that that was one of the reasons that this might be a good fit. It turned out to be the case. If you look in my dining room in Great Falls, there is never someone in that dining room that isn't wearing a uniform.
Oh, wow. That is wild. That is awesome. And then what about bring it to Billings, bring it to a new market in the state?
Well, after I'd been open for 6 years, there'd been a lot of people in Billings that have driven through and seen my restaurant. And quite frankly, a lot of the times when I'm working in Billings, I have people that come and say, "You took care of me in the Great Falls restaurant." And I said, "Yes, I did." I mean, so we picked a very high traffic location in Billings. We do our very best to be active in the city of Billings, and in addition to that, we're spending a pretty fair amount on advertising, because you need to do that to introduce a new brand.
Absolutely. And how is Teriyaki Madness, the members at the corporate office, how have they helped support you through all of this?
We really have a good team at the corporate office. I mean, if you take a look at the level of support that we receive and the things that you get over and above running your own shop, there's things that you just could not do running your own shop. And I'm talking about online sales. I'm talking about integration with third-party delivery companies. The great experiment with Mad Dash right now. And that goes over and above probably the most important thing that corporate provides, and that's a contract with Cisco and Pepsi.
Yes.
In addition to that, we have incredible recipes that are chef tested, and that are all menu costed. I mean, when it comes down to it, when you talk about the business end of running a restaurant, all you got to do is follow the playbook, and you will make money, assuming you can generate the top line sales. It's really the job of the franchise owner to be that salesman, to get people in the door, to make sure that we get that top line number. And then as long as we follow that playbook, you're going to get a prime cost that's going to allow you profitability.
Absolutely. So you have two shops. We're talking about your two shops. They are decently far apart. How do you oversee those shops when they're so far apart? How do you lean on your managers? How do you train them? How do you feel comfortable so that you can operate two shops that are hours drive apart?
Well, we haven't made enough money for me to buy that helicopter yet. It's more than an hour. It's more like 4 hours between my shops. But that's the way things work in the state of Montana. I mean, there's a lot of dirt between signposts in this state. And that's the nature of doing business in a rural area. It's something that I'm comfortable with, and I've lived in Montana my entire life, and I wouldn't live anywhere else. But it introduces its own set of challenges. I mean, all the internet things are great. I mean, I can look at the cameras in my other store, in both of my shops whenever I want to. And the telephone is great, because you need to, the first thing is you need to have managers that you can trust, that are leaders. You need to compensate them well, and you need to have a really open line of communication.
Uh-oh, we lost it.
I mean, you need to be able to roll with the punches and get things working. And if you're not comfortable managing a crisis, you probably shouldn't be in the restaurant business. things are going to happen. You're going to have a grease trap that's going to back up on January 1st. You're going to have you're going to have some squirrel that's going to kill itself on the transformer that feeds the power to your building, and then you're not going to have power for a couple of days. These things are going to happen, and I'm only saying things that have happened to me. So you need to be able to roll with punches, figure it out, deal with a crisis, move on, and make things go.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the Billings Grand Opening, I understand it was busier than maybe expected. How did you handle that obstacle, and how did TMAD help you to offer some extra support when needed?
Well, first, hiring has been very exciting lately, and with 3% unemployment in the state of Montana, it was very difficult getting people hired for the Billings Grand Opening. So we opened probably with less staff than we should have, and we were to the races busy, and that's without a lot of advertising. I made the decision not to do a big old grand opening plan because we don't need to in the state of Montana. And we had lines around the block, and it was exciting. It got spicy. And Billings is a huge sales area. Like I said, we're in one of the #1 shopping centers in the state of Montana there. And if it wasn't for the team at corporate, who I had to stay for an extra week, which did cost money, by the way, that isn't a free service, there's no way we would have been able to stay open.
Absolutely. I'm glad that. Sorry,
Allison, I'm sorry. So did you have to rent a house there for a week as well, or were you commuting back and forth?
Oh no, I haven't. At the time, I had my RV there, and I've got an apartment in Billings. It's okay. 4.5 hours away. If you're going to do business in the state of Montana, unless, to my knowledge, I'm not making enough money yet to be able to buy a helicopter or a jet, which means that I have an apartment in Billings and a place to hang my hat whenever I need to. I mean, I'm there in Billings at least every other week, and that's not going to happen on a day trip.
Absolutely.
Great. What would you say are some things that you do in your shop that really make a difference in the customer's experience and in sales, just in service and also operations? And how do you implement this across both of your shops?
Well, and I'd say we have a virtually identical service plan at both of our shops, and it's a very high level of service. We intentionally price ourselves at the top of the market so that first off, the customers that come in are expecting a high level of service because they've paid a fair amount of money for that food. But at the same time, that generates enough revenue that allows us to do to have the room to do the table touches, to make sure that we're going that extra mile for the customer. I mean, all the things that right now we're rolling off things we need to do are things that we've always done at Teriyaki Madness Montana, because customer service is the first, last, and most important thing. We make sure to cross those T's, dot those I's, make sure the customer has an incredible experience. If they don't, do what we can to make it right. And you just have to be flexible and deal with every one of them, every one of those items as they come up.
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely see a lot of customers come in and they do expect that 5-star service experience. They want to make sure
that's what they should.
And that's what our top performing operators are doing. So it's great. One of our last questions for you is, what has been the most rewarding part of being a TMAD franchisee? What's been your biggest takeaway and what have you learned?
It's really allowed me. I love customer service, and I used to pretend that I was introverted, but I know that that's not true. I really love working with customers. I really, really love. I like to say, nobody has to go out to eat. You can make it. You can go out. You can feed yourself a lot cheaper at the grocery store. If you're going to go out to eat, you deserve a good experience. It's not just feeding yourself. And being a Teriyaki Madness franchisee, I have the ability to bring a little bit of joy into my customers' lives every day. And that's something that I dearly, dearly love. The last thing I'm going to say for customer service, and this is something that I'm going to put up as a sign in the back of the house at both of my shops, is you're only as good as the last meal you served. Do not take your eye off the ball. Do not take your foot off the gas. Whatever metaphors you want to mix, you're only as good as the last meal you served. I'm going to put that. I might just put that on my tombstone.
Perfect. That's a good motto to go by. Absolutely. Allison, did you have any other questions?
No, I don't think I do, Aaron. This was super helpful. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, I know we had a little technical glitch, but like you said, you got to roll with the punches. So we did. So thank you. I hope everybody has a good day.